One face near bottom right.
That's too bright for me.
Take picture. Button. Camera control status. Live. Photo. Stop recording video. Button.
Oh.
Near right edge. Screen curtain off. Speech off.
Oh dear. Okay, so we're about to messing about and playing around there. Whoa. Okay. Howdy, welcome back to another fun-filled edition of, well, I can't call it the Neil Residence Book Club anymore because I'm not there anymore. So welcome to the WRMS Book Club. We had a name change on the fly. As you know, we are once again in the middle of a online learning session, if you want to call it that. So, without further ado, and there's no point in talking about it because we can't do anything about it right now anyway, we are going to finish off, hopefully, time depending, because I have a class in a little while to help out in, the Diary of a Wimpy Kid, but it's Rowley Jefferson's Journal. So, get yourself warm, grab a hot chocolate, much like the one I have here, that I better drink soon before it's freezing, because I'm in my basement. And let's get the show on the road. Rowley Jefferson's Journal by Jeff Kinney. The time I made the biggest mistake of my life. Okay, this was just part of this was part of the last chapter, but I got so mad writing it, I kinda had to take a break. But I've gotta take some deep breaths because this chapter is gonna be even harder to write. The next day, during the maths test, I tried to use my notes to help, but they were all out of order. Plus, it was hard to concentrate because Greg kept trying to ask me questions. Image. Greg asking Rowley questions. Greg. Blap. End imagey thing. Blap, blap, blap. Some of the other kids were getting stressed out about the test too because Timothy Lautner got dizzy and Miss Beck had to take him to the nurse's office. Well, as soon as Miss Beck left the room, Greg scooted his chair real close to mine and looked over my shoulder at my paper. Image. Greg's scooting close to Rowley. End imagey thing. I whispered to Greg to go away because he was trying to cheat, but Greg said it's not cheating since we were study partners and we both had the exact same information in our brains anyway. I guess he had a point, but I still didn't feel good about it. Then Greg said he already finished his test and was only trying to make sure I got the right answers on mine. And that made me feel kind of nervous because I wasn't positive about a few of them. So I let Greg check my test. And believe me, if I could do everything over again, I would have. Image. Rowley and Greg. Rowley. Yep. I got 180 for number 8. Greg. Yeah. This really, that's really good stuff. After a minute, I started thinking maybe Greg wasn't just looking over my test to check my answers, but that he was copying them. And it was too late to stop him, so I tried to pretend it wasn't actually happening. Image. Rowley and Greg. End image. Rowley. La 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 la. Isn't happening. Greg pushes out a chair back. Greg pushes his chair back to its normal position right before Miss Beck came back. And when the bell rang for the end of class, she went around and collected all of our papers. Image. Rowley, Greg, and Miss Beck. Collecting papers. Rowley. Ah! Whew! And imagey, brackety thing with Robert. The next day, Miss Beck gave us our tests back, and I got 89. I was kind of disappointed in myself because I usually do a lot better, but Greg got 89 too, which was a really good grade for him. Image. Miss Beck giving back the papers to Greg and Rowley. And image. Greg. Woohoo! But if you think this chapter has a happy ending, well, guess again. It doesn't. When class ended, everyone got up to leave, but Ms. Beck told me and Greg to stay in our seats. After everyone left, Miss Beck told us she wanted to talk to us about our tests. She said she noticed we got the same grade and we got the same exact answers to every question. But Greg said that made sense because we were study partners and we knew all the same stuff. Image. Greg, Rowley, and Miss Beck. End image. I felt pretty glad Greg was my friend because he's real good at explaining stuff like that to grown-ups. I thought Miss Beck was gonna let us leave, but she didn't. She said it seemed awfully suspicious that our tests were identical, and she put them side by side to show us what she meant. Well, that's when I found that Greg copied every single one of my test answers, even my name. Image. Greg and Rowley's exam papers. End image. Miss Beck said it was obvious that Greg copied my paper, so she was going to have to do, we were going to have to do 3 days of detention, plus he had to take the test again. I thought Miss Beck was going to give me a detention too, but she didn't. But what she said was worse than detention. Image. Miss Beck and Rowley. End image. Miss Beck. Rowley, I'm disappointed in you. Miss Beck said she wanted us to learn a lesson from this, and we both swore it would never happen again. Miss Beck said, well, that's good, because once people know you're a cheat, it follows you wherever you go. Then Miss Beck said we were free to go. Greg got up and left, but I gave Miss Beck a hug to show her I was sorry. But I think maybe I hugged her too long. Image. Rowley hugging Miss Beck. Miss Beck. Okay there. That's enough, Rowley. On the way home from school, all I kept thinking about was what Miss Beck said about being a cheat. Image. Rowley thinking about Miss Beck. End image. Well, I learned my lesson, but I'm not so sure about Greg. The next day, Miss Beck made Greg sit at the back of the class and retake the test. But Greg was asking me questions pretty much the whole time, and I had to pretend I couldn't hear him. Image. Greg, Rowley, and the other students. End image. Greg. Blap, blap, blap. And if you're like Rowley, why are you still friends with Greg? Well, my answer to that is Greg's still a good friend. He's just a bad study partner. Plus, he's the only person I know who can lay an egg. The time Greg totally had my back. Okay, Greg, if you're still reading this, then sorry if I made you look bad in the last chapter. But don't worry, because in this one, you're going to come out looking pretty good. So, last year our science teacher was Miss Moody. But when she had a baby, the school got this guy named Mr. Hardy to fill in for her. I think Mr. Hardy used to teach at the school a long time ago, and now they were bringing him back whenever they needed a long-term substitute. Image, Mr. Hardy, end image. I thought Mr. Hardy was just going to do things the same way as Miss Moody, but I was wrong. All Mr. Hardy did every day was write our attendance on the board and then read at his desk for the rest of the class. Image, Mr. Hardy reading at his desk. End image. After like the third day, kids started goofing off during class, and Mr. Hardy didn't even seem to care. Image, students goofing off in class. End image. One time, a couple of kids tried to kill a bug by dropping their textbooks on it. Luckily, the bug got away, but even with all the noise, Mr. Hardy never looked up once. Image, student trying to kill a bug in class. End image. Well, maybe Mr. Hardy wasn't bothering, but I couldn't concentrate on my assignments with all this craziness going on every day. Image, students and Mr. Hardy, end image. Greg told me I was wasting my time doing the daily assignments because Mr. Hardy was never going to even look at them. Greg said I should just live it up with everyone else until Ms. Moody returned and things went back to normal. Well, guess what? Mrs. Moody didn't come back. She decided she wanted to be a full-time mom, and that means Mr. Hardy was our teacher for the rest of the year. Now that Mr. Hardy was our official science teacher, I thought things would get better, but they got worse. Image, students getting crazier in class, end image. Then, on the last day of school, Mr. Hardy announced he was gonna give everyone their grades. Well, that freaked out most of the kids in my class because just about everyone deserved an F. Mr. Hardy started going down the aisle and whispering each kid's grade in their ear. But Mr. Hardy doesn't have a whispering voice, so everybody else could hear what he was saying. The first kid to get his grade was Dennis Dieter Lizzie, and he got C because Mr. Hardy talks real slow, so it sounds like this. Image, Mr. Hardy giving grades. Mr. Hardy, C. The next kid got a C too, and so did every kid after that. Even Greg got a C, and he didn't hand in a single assignment. And he was real happy about it because he didn't want to go to summer school. Image, Mr. Hardy giving Greg his grade, and image. Mr. Hardy, C. Greg, yes! So then it was my turn, and I was kind of crossing my fingers, hoping I'd get a good grade, but I got the same grade as everyone else. Image, Mr. Hardy, Rowley, and Greg. Mr. Hardy, C. So, I guess Greg was right that Mr. Hardy never looked at those assignments. Mr. Hardy moved on to the next kid, but all of a sudden, Greg stood up and argued with Mr. Hardy. Greg told him that I was the only kid who did any work and that he's a terrible teacher and that someone should report him to the principal. Image. Mr. Hardy, Rowley, and Greg. End image. I was pretty shocked because Greg never stood up for me before. For a second, I thought what in the world? Hold on. For a second, I thought Mr. Hardy was gonna send Greg to the principal's office, but after a minute, Mr. Hardy whispered the new grade in my ear. Image. Mr. Hardy and Greg and Rowley. Mr. Hardy. B. On the walk home, I told Greg he was a great pal for doing that for me. And I said now we were even for that time I saved him from Tevin Larkin's birthday party. Image. Greg and Rowley walking home. End image. But Greg said what he did for me was way better than getting him out of Tevin's party. He said by getting me that B, he probably just saved me from getting some crummy job later on in my life. So I said, okay, how much do I have to do until we're even again? And then he drew a chart to show me. Image. Chart showing what Rowley owes Greg. End photo image thing. Well, I guess that meant I've got a long way to go, but that's okay, because me and Greg are gonna be friends for a long time. I'll get a lot of chances to pay him back. The time I realized that maybe Greg doesn't always tell the truth. So, after the time Rowley and Greg were study partners, I asked him how in the heck he laid that egg, and he told me he can lay any kind of egg he wants. So I said, okay then, lay an ostrich egg. And he said for that, he'd need to eat a lot of crisps, and then he took some of mine. Image. Rowley and Greg, end image. But a few days later, when I stopped by Greg's house to pick him up for school, his mom gave him an egg and in his lunch. And then I remember Greg always has a hard-boiled egg for lunch. And so he must have had one in his coat pocket the night we studied together. Well, that made me start to wonder if some other stuff I know about Greg isn't maybe true. We've been friends a long time, and he's told me a bunch of things that seemed a little shaky. So now, I'm kind of thinking not everything he's told me is 100% accurate. Here are a few things I'm starting to wonder about. Number one, Greg says he is dating a supermodel, but they have to keep it a secret since her career would get ruined if people found out she was dating a middle schooler. Image. Rowley and Greg looking at supermodel girls. End image. Greg said whenever she goes on TV, she sends him secret messages by blinking. Image. Rowley and Greg looking at Greg's supermodel girlfriend on TV. Greg. I miss you too. Number two. Greg says that one time he threw a frisbee and the wind took it so far that it went all the way around the world and hit him in the back of the head. So that's why he won't play sports anymore. Image. Greg playing frisbee in the wind. Greg. Ow! 3. Greg says that the chart on the keypad of a phone is really a snowflake, and it's a direct line to the North Pole. Whenever I do something Greg doesn't like, he tells me he's gonna report me to Santa. Image, Greg, showing Rowley the chart. Number 4, Greg says that when he was a baby, his mom brought him to a modeling agency, and they took some pictures of diaper cream ads. Image, Greg's dad photographing and Greg as a baby. Greg says the ads never ran in the United States, but that if he went to China, he'd get totally mobbed. Image, Greg's diaper creams ad in China. Number 5, Greg says that he came up with the... Oh, there's a cord in my book. With the defense chant at basketball games, and every time a crowd says it, he gets $100 sent to his bank account. Image, Greg's defense chant. Number 6, Greg says he's 500 years old, but he doesn't age, and he has to move every few years so no one will figure it out. He says he knew Abraham Lincoln in middle school, and he was kind of a jerk. Image, Greg and Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln. Number 7, Greg says there's a form you can fill in at the town hall to legally adopt a kid you want, and that he adopted me, so now I have to do whatever he tells me to. Image, Greg sending Rowley. I don't know where he's sending him, but that's what it says. Greg, give me some snacks, son. Number 8, Greg says that he can turn into any form of water whenever he wants, but when I asked him to turn into a glass of water, he said the last time he did that, Roderick drank him, and it took 2 days to get back to human form. Image, Roderick flushing the toilet. Number 9, Greg says he only uses 5% of his brain, and if he wanted to, he could levitate a building with his mind. So I said maybe I could levitate a building too, but he said probably not, because I'm already using 100% of my brain. Image, Greg and Rowley. End image, Rowley. Shoot. Number 10. Speaking of brains, Greg says he's got ESP, and he always knows what I'm going to do before I actually do it. That one might actually be true, because I've seen him do it a bunch of times. Image, Rowley and Greg. End image, Greg. I knew you were about to pick up that popsicle. Or lick that popsicle, it says. Anyway, I'm guessing at least half this stuff is made up, but I'm just writing it down here on the in case it isn't. And for the record, Greg's been eating a lot of my crisps over the last 3 weeks, and there's still no sign of that ostrich egg. The time me and Greg came up with our own superhero. Okay, this is probably going to be the best chapter in this book because it's the only one that's got superheroes in it. And I hope I don't spoil the surprise, but even if I did, trust me, it's gonna be a pretty good chapter. This one day it was raining, so me and Greg couldn't go outside. And Greg wasn't allowed to play video games because he lost his temper playing Twisted Wizard. Image. Greg and his dad. End image. Greg. Whah! Mr. Heffley said, kids our age spend too much time in front of screens anyway, and it was good for us to take a break every now and again. Then, his mom gave us some markers and a sketchbook and told us we should use our imaginations and make up our own comics, like we used to do. Image. Greg and Rowley and Mrs. Heffley. End image. Well, the last time me and Greg made some comics together, it didn't turn out so good for me. And if you don't know the whole story, then I'll give you the short version. In our first year of middle school, me and Greg worked on a comic together called Zoo Wee Mama. But then Greg got bored of it and said I should do it all by myself. And then my comic got in the school paper, and Greg was mad at me, even though he's the one who told me I should do it. Then we got in a big fight in front of the whole school, and some teenagers came out of nowhere, and they caught me and Greg. Then they made me eat a piece of what was on the basketball court. Okay, that sounds fun. Image. Rowley and some teenagers. End image. I still can't eat pizza or mozzarella sticks or anything else within with it in, but Greg says I need to get over it because that happened a long time ago. Image. Greg, Rowley, and Roderick. Rowley. Yeah, gag. Yeah. So, anyway, I opened the sketchbook Mrs. Heffley gave us. There was a bunch of Zooey Mama in there, but we never handed in to the school paper. Image. Greg and Rowley. End image. Greg said I should put them in here because they were going to be worth a lot of money when he gets famous. Image. Cartoon 1 and something else. Skoogla, whatever that is. Cartoon 2. Merry Christmas, Skoogla. Zooey Mama. Skoogla. It's 20,000 BC, and Christmas hasn't even been invented yet. Image. Cartoon 2 and Cartoon 3. Cartoon 2. I finally finished my masterpiece. It's time to show it to the world. Zooey Mama. Cartoon 3. You dummy, it won't fit through the door. Image. Cartoon 4 and Cartoon 5. Cartoon 4. Okay, sir. I tore down your house. That'll be $10,000, please. Oops. I guess your nose got wet. Cartoon 5. What? I left a note on the door that said, "Do not tear down my house." Zoo-wee mamas. Image, cartoon 6 and cartoon 7. Oh, there's more of these things. Cartoon 7. Uh-oh. Joe sleepwalking again. We should wake him up. But we're camping on a cliff. Cartoon 7. I heard it's a bad idea to wake up someone who's sleepwalking. Zoo-wee mamas. Image, cartoon 8. Cartoon 8. The bank robber made off with $30,000. Police have released a sketch of the suspect based on witness description. Zoo-wee mamas. Image, cartoon 9, cartoon 10, and cartoon 11. Cartoon 9. I've invented a new ray gun. It makes everything go backwards. Cartoon 10. Well, what does it do? Cartoon 11. Yeah, right. Cartoon 10. And cartoon 11. Zoo-wee mamas. Image. Bear in cartoon 12. Bear. Rawr! I'm gonna eat you. Cartoon 12. Yeah, well, guess what? A bear is about to eat you in real life. Zoo-wee mamas. Image something. Cartoon 13. Cartoon 13. I found it. The legendary Dryocelis Australia, the rarest insect on Earth. And my son is here to see me capture it. Zoo-wee mamas. I told Greg maybe we could write some more Zoo-wee mamas, but he said that joke is stale and we needed to come up with some new material. And then Greg had an awesome idea. He said we should create our own superhero. Well, I liked the idea a lot because it sounded fun. Greg said he didn't care about having fun. He just cared about the money. Greg said, if you come up with a superhero, then you can sell the movie rights and sit back and wait for the money to roll in. Image, Greg and Rowley, thinking about a superhero movie. End image. Then we started talking about what we'd do with all the money we were going to make from our superhero movie. I said I'd go to the toy aisle at the store and I'd fill up a shopping trolley with as many toys as I could fit in there. Image, Greg and Rowley planning what to buy. But Greg said I wasn't thinking big enough. He said he'd buy the whole store and wear a different pair of sneakers every day as long as he lived. And he'd also live in the snack aisle. Image, Greg talking about buying the whole store. End image. Then I said I'd buy a fancy sports car and I'd give Mrs. Beck a ride to school every single morning. Image, Rowley and Greg talking about buying a sports car. Greg and the image. Greg said we were gonna be so rich we could buy the whole school and fire all the teachers and have epic paintball fights in the hallways. Image, Greg and Rowley having an epic paintball fight. End image. I said maybe we shouldn't fire all the teachers because Miss Beck is really nice and she's good at teaching maths. Greg said we'd be so rich we wouldn't need to learn maths anyway. But we could keep Miss Beck around because we need someone to count our money for us. And I guess that made me feel a little better. Image. Greg and Rowley. End image. Greg said we had plenty of time to figure out what we were going to do with all of our money later on. But right now, it was time to get serious about this superhero idea. Greg said the first thing we needed to do was to figure out what kind of powers our superhero has. So, I said maybe he could fly or have super strength, but Greg said both those ideas were dumb because they've already been used a million times before. Image. Rowley and Greg thinking about having super strength. Hoorah! End image. Then, I said maybe our superhero could have X-ray vision. But Greg said that wasn't a good superpower because once he accidentally saw his grandpa naked, and he wishes he hadn't. Image. Greg and Rowley still planning on how to spend their money. End image. Greg said we needed to do something original, so we started coming up with ideas that no one had ever thought of before. And the ideas we came up with were okay, but not great. Image. Greg and Rowley as superheroes. Rowley and Greg. Sneeze! Cough! Don't want to go doing that these days. Yipes! Image. Greg and Rowley as superheroes. End image. The one we liked the best was this guy called the Chucker, who could throw his own head like a football. Image. The Chucker and the bad guys. Bad guy. Ha ha! I got away. Chucker. Oh, did you? But Greg said the Chucker wouldn't work as an action figure because the head would be a choking hazard for little kids. Then we tried to come up with some characters that would be okay if a kid accidentally swallowed them, but most of our ideas weren't that good. Image. Chicken finger lady. End image. Greg said, moms are usually the ones who buy their kids toys, so we should come up with something they'd like. But we weren't happy with that idea either. Image. Healthy snacks man. End image. Greg said maybe the reason we weren't coming up with anything good was that we weren't a very good team. He said we should each try something on our own and see who came out with the best idea. We both did our own thing, and then we showed each other what we had. Greg's superhero was a guy from space who had a different kind of power in each fingertip, which was actually pretty awesome, if you ask me. Image. Intergalactic Man. Baby. I told Greg his idea was cool and we should go with that. Then Greg said, well, what's your idea? But I didn't want to tell him because I knew he'd laugh. And then he promised he wouldn't laugh, so I showed him my character. Image. Amazing Guy. Greg asked what Amazing Guy's superpower was, and I said it was kindness. And that made Greg break his promise about not laughing. Image. Greg breaking into laughter over Rowley's character. Greg said a superhero should be something. I can't tell what that says. Army or Eddie? I don't know. The Braille's kind of erased. We're going to say that it's... Oh, hold on. Greg said a superhero should be something, and it would be cool if Amazing Guy had knives coming from his knuckles and wore a black leather jacket and said swears when he gets the bad guys cornered. But I said we wanted Amazing Guy to be like a real role model for kids. And that made Greg break his promise again. Image. Greg pounding the table as he laughed. My hot chocolate is no longer hot. Now it's slightly cooler than lukewarm. Okay. I told Greg if he didn't like my characters, that was fine, but I wasn't giving him any money if I sold the movie rights. And all of a sudden, Greg got real interested in Amazing Guy and said that if I get rich, I owe him half the money because I used his markers and paper. I said that wasn't true, and Greg said he'd call his lawyer to find out. Then Greg dialed a number on the phone, and I listened in on his half of the conversation. Image. Greg on the phone. Greg. Yes. They're my markers. 50%? Okay, that's what I thought. Then Greg hung up the phone. I told him to call his lawyer back because I wanted to ask him a question too. But Greg said I couldn't afford his lawyer and I had to get my own. Greg said since we were gonna split things 50-50, then we were equal partners and we needed to work together. I said fine. But I still didn't want Amazing Guy to say swears and throw knives. Greg said, okay, we'll talk about that later. Greg said the first thing we needed to do was to give Amazing Guy an origin story to show how he got his powers. Then he told me how other superheroes got their powers. Image. Greg talking about how to get superpowers and image. I said Amazing Guy had good parents who raised him to be a nice person, and that's why he decided to do this when he grew up, which was fight for people who needed help. Way to go, Super Guy. Image. Rowley and Greg talking about Amazing Guy. And image. But Greg said that's a terrible origin story. He said something exciting needed to happen, like Amazing Guy getting hit by a meteor, or getting bitten by a radioactive bug or something like that. And I said, okay, fine. Then Amazing Guy gets hit by a double rainbow, and that's how he gets his superpowers. Image. Rowley and Greg talking about Amazing Guy being hit with rainbows. End image. Greg said that didn't make sense, but he didn't feel like getting into a dumb argument about it either. So, we'd come back to that origin story later on too. Greg said every good superhero has a secret identity, so we needed to come up with one for Amazing Guy. I said he could be a nurse at an emergency care clinic, and when he gets off work at 6 p.m., he becomes amazing guy, and then helps people until he heads to bed. And no one knows his secret identity, not even Nurse Beck, who works with him at the emergency center. Image. Amazing guy and Nurse Beck. End image. Greg said I got that name from Miss Beck, our math teacher, but I said, nope, it's just a coincidence. Greg said we were wasting too much time talking about stupid stuff, and we needed to design Amazing Guy's suit. I said I liked the suit I came up with. Which was fine, but Greg said it was stupid because everyone could tell who it was if they saw him walking around in real life. Greg said Amazing Guy needed a mask, so he drew one that looked pretty awesome, and he added a cape too. Image. Amazing Guy's suit and mask. End photo. Then Greg said I said if Amazing Guy doesn't have any real powers, then maybe his suit could be his powers. But I said, Amazing Guy has the power of kindness, and his gloves are padded so he doesn't hurt the bad guys too much when he punches them. I said I wanted to do all the drawing, and Greg said that's fine, but he'd do the writing. So I drew this awesome scene where Amazing Guy has to leave work early to fight some bad guys, and I left space for Greg to fill in the words. Image. Amazing Guy in action. Image. Amazing Guy in action. Image. Cartoon 13, Cartoon 14, and Amazing Guy. End thing. Cartoon 13. We got the X-ray back, and it's the signal. It's okay. We're just hanging out, having fun. It's okay. We're just having fun. Cartoon 14. Nope. Yes, but what about my arm? Nurse, come back. Amazing Guy. You dummy, you could have used the door. I'll rescue you, friend. Image. Amazing Guy. Cartoon 15, Cartoon 14, and Amazing Guy. Amazing Guy. Leave him alone, you street punks. I saved you from those thugs. Cartoon 15. You're using words that hurt. Hey, take it easy, pal. Boy, that guy wasn't so amazing. Cartoon 16. My dad gave me this bat for my birthday. I thought he was kind of a jerk. Cartoon 14. Those guys were my friends. I told Greg he totally messed up my comic, and that from now on I'd do the writing, the drawing. Then Greg said he was gonna call his lawyer again, and I said, go right ahead. And even when he said he was gonna call Santa, I wouldn't budge. Image. Rowley and Greg. End image. Greg said he didn't want to write for my stupid comic anyway, because my superhero was terrible, and he said he was going to write Intergalactic Man comics, and I said fine. because my character was better anyway. Then Greg said if Intergalactic Man got in a fight with Amazing Guy, he'd wipe him out in 5 seconds. And I said, oh, yeah? Let's see about that then. So, then we drew this battle, and he drew superhero, and I drew mine. Image, Cartoon 17, an Amazing Guy. Cartoon 17. We meet for the first time, Amazing Guy. There are so many ways I could destroy you with this power. Which shall I choose? Ice Freeze. Okay, fine. Laser Finger. Hey, you can't use the same power twice. That's all I really need to fight you. Okay, then prepare for me to unleash my full power. Prepare to meet your doom, Amazing Guy. Hi. Rainbow Block. Rainbow Block again. Image, Amazing Guy. And Cartoon 17, Amazing Guy. Summoning the power of kindness. Oh, Cartoon 17. No! I guess I got a little carried away with that last drawing because after I drew it, Greg said it was probably time for me to go home. Image, Greg telling Rowley to go home. End image, Rowley. Pant, pant. Maybe next time I won't have Amazing Guy use his full powers on his enemies because I wouldn't want his parents or Nurse Beck to be disappointed in him. And now it's cold. The time me and Greg had a 2-night sleepover. Okay, you already know this from the title of this chapter, but this one time, me and Greg had a 2-night sleepover. And I bet you think we had a total blast. And you want to read about it, all the wacky stuff we did. But guess what? It wasn't fun at all. The reason this sleepover happened was because my Nana got sick. And me and my parents were gonna go visit her, but then Mrs. Heffley said, why don't the two of you go and we'll watch Rowley for the weekend? When my mom said okay to that idea, me and Greg were hyped because we'd never had a 2-night sleepover before, but I guess we should have waited until later to celebrate because of the whole Nana thing. Image, Rowley and his parents, Craig and Mrs. Heffley. On Friday, my mom packed my bag and for the weekend and made me put in an extra pair of underwear, just in case. Plus, she packed a picture of her and my dad so I could look at them every night when I missed them before going to bed. Image, a photo of Rowley's parents. Like I said, end photo. Like I said before, the sleepover wasn't a lot of fun, but it started off pretty good. We played video games in Greg's basement and ate snacks. Then we prank called Scotty Douglas, and he blew the whistle. He keeps right by his phone for when we do that. Image, Rowley and Greg, Scott Douglas. End image. Greg, excuse me, sir. Your refrigerator is running, so maybe you should catch it. Scotty Douglas, tweet! But then Mrs. Douglas called Mrs. Heffley to tell on us for prank calling Scotty. Then Mrs. Heffley told us we were bullying, and that made me feel ashamed. Image, Mrs. Heffley warning Greg and Rowley against bullying. End image. At 9 o'clock, Mrs. Heffley said it was time for bed for me, and she went back upstairs. I was pretty tired, but Greg said he had an idea. There's this kid on our street named Joseph O'Rourke who has a trampoline, but he never lets anyone use it. Greg said we should sneak out and jump on the trampoline. Well, Joe was asleep. Well, I wasn't so crazy about this sneaking out idea, but Greg said if I was going to be a baby, I should go up to Manny's room and sleep in there. I said I wasn't a baby, but said, yeah, and I said, nuh-uh. Then he said, what? Yeah, times infinity. But I was ready for that, and I said, nuh-uh, times infinity. Twice. Squared, even. And I thought I had Greg beat with that one, but he got me anyway when he said, yubba times infinity squared plus 1. Image, Greg and Rowley arguing. End image, Rowley, dang. So we snuck out the back door, and I followed Greg up to Joe's. It was really cold outside, and all I had on was my jammies, but I didn't want to complain, because then Greg might call me a baby again. Image, Greg and Rowley sneaking out of the house. End image. Sure enough, all the lights at the O'Rourke house were off. So this was our big chance to use Joey's trampoline. Greg said we couldn't make any noise, and then he climbed up and did a bunch of jumps, but he was real quiet about it. Then it was my turn. This was my first time on a trampoline, and it was really fun. And I guess that's why I forgot we were being sneaky. Image, Greg and Rowley on a trampoline. End image, Rowley, whee! The lights came on inside and the O'Rourke's house, and their dog started barking, and Greg took off without me. I wanted to run too, but it's not so easy to stop bouncing when you're on a trampoline. Image, Rowley and Greg. End image, Rowley, yeah! Greg, bark, bark. Once I finally stopped, I ran to the Heffley's house and went around to the back door. But I guess Greg wanted to reach or teach me a lesson for making too much noise at the O'Rourke's because he won't let me in. Image. Rowley locked out of the house. End image. I tried to show Greg that I was freezing, but I don't think he really got what I was trying to say to him. Image. Greg trying to hear Rowley. I thought he was going to make me stay out there all night, so I ran around the house to see if the front door was unlocked. But it wasn't, and I kind of freaked out a little. Image. Rowley and Greg. End image. The good news is that someone came to the door pretty quick, but the bad news was that it was Mr. Heffley. Image. Mr. Heffley opening the door for Rowley and Greg. Mr. Heffley told us to get our stuff from the basement because we were gonna have to stay in Greg's room so he could keep an eye on us. Image. Mr. Heffley talking to Greg and Rowley. End image. Then Mrs. Heffley came into Greg's room and said she was disappointed in us for sneaking out, and that made me feel ashamed all over again. But I think Greg gets in trouble a lot because he didn't seem to be too concerned. Image. Mrs. Heffley, Greg, and Rowley in Greg's room. End image. As soon as Mrs. Heffley went to bed, Greg said I was dumb for making all that noise at the O'Rourke's, and extra dumb for ringing the doorbell when I got back to his house. I said I was sorry for saying wee on the trampoline, but the doorbell thing was all his fault because he locked me out. Image. Greg and Rowley arguing. End image. Then Greg whooped me with his pillow, and I whooped him back, but I guess we made too much noise, and that's why I had to see Mr. Heffley in his underwear for the second time in one night. Image. Mr. Heffley, Greg, and Rowley. Whapping their pillows. Mr. Heffley told Greg he had to sleep in Manny's room and I could... And all I could think was, who's the baby now, Greg? The next day, Mrs. Heffley woke me up and said breakfast was ready downstairs. Greg was in the bathroom brushing his teeth, and he said he hoped I brought my own toothpaste because if I wanted to use his, I was gonna have to pay for it since it was his house. Image. Greg making Rowley pay for water. End image. I told him I did have my own toothpaste, and then he said I was gonna have to pay for the water I was using to brush my teeth. I said I wasn't gonna pay for the water because I was the guest, and guests are supposed to get treated specially. So, I said I wasn't gonna pay, and what are they doing? I said I wasn't going to pay what I owed, but I could eat breakfast or any other meal, and I couldn't eat breakfast or any other meals either. I was like, yeah, right. And then he said I was using his electricity. And he shut the light off on me. Image. Greg shutting the light off in the bathroom on Rowley. When I got downstairs, I told Mrs. Heffley about all the stuff Greg said upstairs, and she said I was right about guests being special. Then she let me pick this let me pick which pancakes I wanted before Greg got to see them and pick his own. Image, Mrs. Heffley, Rowley, and Greg. After Whoa! Oh, they forgot to put spaces in here. Hold on. Please hold while I decode this one. After breakfast, Mrs. Heffley said, we've had too much screen time the day before, and that we had to figure out something else to do until lunch. Greg was in a grumpy mood, so I decided to cheer him up with a knock-knock joke, but he wouldn't do the who's there part, no matter how many times I said knock-knock. Image, Rowley playing the knock-knock joke on Greg. End image. Rowley, knock-knock, knock-knock, knock-knock. Hey Greg, knock-knock. I told Greg I was gonna go upstairs and tell his mom he wasn't saying, who's there? And that finally made him do it. Image, Rowley and Greg. End image. Greg, who's there? I said, what do elephants do at night? But Greg said, you're not supposed to ask a question in that part of the joke. And I said, yes, you are. Then he told me I was dumb, and I said I was going to tell on him for that one too. And Greg said, go right ahead. And so I did. Image, Greg's mom and Rowley. End image. So Mrs. Heffley came down and told Greg he wasn't allowed to call me dumb or stupid or anything else bad either. Image, Mrs. Heffley, Rowley, and Greg. End image. But then she left. Greg said he had a new nickname for me. At first I thought it sounded cool, but then I figured out what it was. Image, Rowley and Greg. End image. Greg, hey, stop. S-T-O-P. I told Greg I was going to tell on him again, but then Greg said that it was opposite day, and everything meant the opposite of what it was supposed to say. Image, Rowley and Greg. End image. Greg, you're smart. Well, I knew what it meant, so I went and told Mrs. Heffley, but after the first, she didn't get mad because she didn't know it was opposite day. Image, Mrs. Heffley, Rowley, and Greg. And my broken arm. Okay. I explained it to Mrs. Heffley, and she made Greg apologize, but I think he might have been being opposite. Image, Mrs. Heffley, Rowley, and Greg. End image. Greg, I'm sorry. Mrs. Heffley told us that sometimes friends get on each other's nerves, but we needed to figure things out since we had a whole other day to go through for our sleepover. Image, Greg's mum, Greg and Rowley. End image. She said maybe we should spend time apart, and I thought that sounded like a great idea. So I hung out with Manny in his room for a while. Image, Greg and Rowley and Manny in his room. Even though I was having fun with Manny, I missed my mom and dad, and I looked at their picture whenever I got the chance. Image, Rowley looking at his parents' picture. The next time I saw Greg was when we had lunch. Mrs. Heffley made peanut butter and jam sandwiches, and she even remembered to cut the crusts off mine. After we finished our snacks and sandwiches, she gave us chocolate chip cookies for dessert. She gave Greg one, but she gave me two, because I said I was the guest, and guests are special. Imagine Mrs. Heffley giving Greg... Image. Mrs. Heffley giving Greg and Rowley cookies, and image. I ate one of my cookies, but I made a shield around the other cookie with my arm so Greg couldn't get it. Sometimes I have something Greg wants, he will lick it, so I won't want to eat it anymore. That's what he did last Halloween when I got more candy than he did. Image. Greg and Rowley at last year's Halloween. End image. But Greg said he was full and didn't even want my cookie. He said that while I was playing with Manny, he was reading a book about magic, and he wanted to show me a trick. I really like magic tricks, so I said, okay. First, Greg told me to put my fingers on the edge of the table, so they were close together like this. Image. Rowley's fingers on the table, close together. Then Greg took my glass of milk and put it on top of my fingers. Image. Greg puts a glass of milk on top of Rowley's fingers. End image. I asked him when the magic part was going to happen, and he said it was just already happening because I couldn't move. Well, he was right, because if I did, the glass of milk would tip over and spill all over the place. And Mr. Heffley gets mad when I spill stuff in his house. Image. Rowley and Greg. End image. But then Greg said that's the real magic part, and he took my cookie and ate it up. Image. Greg eating Rowley's chocolate cookie. End image. After that, Greg went upstairs, but I was still stuck at the kitchen table with the glass of milk. And I was still there a half hour later when Mrs. Heffley came back to the kitchen. Image. Mrs. Heffley and Rowley in the kitchen. End image. I told her what Greg did, and boy was she mad. But it wasn't because of the magic trick. She was mad that Greg took something that belonged to me without asking. We went up to Greg's room, and then Mrs. Heffley told me I could pick out one of Greg's things to take home with me so we'd be even. Image. Greg's mom, Greg, and Rowley in Greg's room. Well, Greg had a bunch of cool toys that he never let me play with, so I really was really hard to pick one. But every time I got close to one of his favorites, he kinda let me know I shouldn't pick that one up. Image. Rowley and Greg. End image. Greg. I picked an action figure that was a knight with a missing arm, and Greg seemed okay with that one. Image. A knight with a missing arm. End image. But as soon as Mrs. Heffley left the room, Greg said I could play with my lame action figure because I was going to play with all his cool stuff because he was going to play with all his cool stuff by himself. Image. Rowley and Greg. End image. Greg. Whoosh. Zoom. Meow. It kind of bugged me, and I wanted to bug Greg back. So I pretended I was having a total blast with my toy. Image. Rowley and Greg. End image. Rowley. Tra-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la. I'm having so much fun. Do-do-do. Fun, 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 tra-la-la-la-la. Well, it worked, and Greg said I had to hand over his toy. I said, no way. And he said he was gonna wait for me to fall asleep, and then he'd take it back. I told him I was gonna put the action figure down my underwear so he couldn't get it back. He didn't like that idea. Image, Greg and Rowley. Trading the night. Then Greg said he'd trade me for the action figure, and I asked him what he'd give me for it. Greg said he'd give me 99 cents. And the night. And I said, okay to that one. But then Greg took a dirty sock out of his hamper and tried to get me to smell it. Image. Greg making Rowley smell a dirty sock. End image. And I was like, what was that for? And Greg said that was my first cent. Nah. See what he did there? I said I wanted 99 cents. C-E-N-T-S. Not 99 cents. S-C-E-N-T-S. But Greg said a deal's a deal, and then he tried to get me to smell another sock as my second cent. Image, Greg making Rowley smell another sock. End image. Rowley. I told Greg I was just going to go tell on him again, and he said he'd trade me a Lego dragon for my knight. And I said, yes, because that dragon is way better than a one-armed knight. Image, Lego dragon. End image. But then, when I gave Greg my knight, he wouldn't give me the dragon because he said I should have remembered it was opposite day. Image, Greg taking the knight from Rowley. End image. Well, that was the last straw for me, and I tried to grab the dragon from Greg, but it kind of slipped out of my hand and hit the floor and broke apart. Image, the broken Lego dragon. I guess we were making a lot of noise because the next thing we knew, Greg's mom was back. She said she was going to have to separate us for the rest of the night, which was fine by me. Image, Greg's mom separating Greg and Rowley. Mrs. Heffley said that we each had one half of the bedroom so that we had to stay on our own half. So, she asked me which side I wanted, and I picked the side with the bed, which made Greg mad. When Mrs. Heffley went back to her room, Greg said he was turning on an invisible force field between our two sides. Then he said if someone crosses over, they'd get zapped. Image, Rowley and Greg. And image. Greg said he was fine with me having the bed because he could sleep on the air mattress. And plus, all the fun stuff was on his side. And when I reached over to Greg's side for my action figure, sure enough, I got zapped. Image. Greg getting Rowley zapped. End image. I opened the drawer in the table next to Greg's bed to see if he had any comics I could read. Well, there weren't any comics, but one of Greg's old handheld video games was in there. So I played it. And Greg couldn't do anything because of his force field. Image. Rowley and Greg. End image. Rowley. Whee! Yeah! But Greg said I could play video games by myself like a nerd because he was having a wild party on his side of the room and I wasn't invited. And I got kinda jealous because his party looked pretty fun. Image. Rowley and Greg. End image. Greg. La 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 la. Yay, yay, yay. Whoop, whoop. I said, well, I'm having a party on my side, and it was even more wild than his party. And I had really good music, too. Greg said I couldn't even come up with an original idea, but I still think he was jealous of my party. Image. Rowley and Greg. End image. Rowley. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Woo! Whoop, whoop. Then Greg said the plug on my party... Then Greg said the plug to my party speakers was on his side of the room. So I pulled it out and shut off the music. Image. Rowley and Greg. End image. Greg. Yank! Greg got back to his party, and I tried to tell him to plug my speakers back in, but Greg couldn't hear me because his music was up way too loud. Image. Greg screaming at Rowley. Ah! What? 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 But by this time, Mr. Heffley came into the room and Greg didn't even notice him standing there in the doorway. Image. Mr. Heffley, Rowley, and Greg. End image. Greg, I can't hear you. Mr. Heffley said he didn't want one more peep out of us, and then he left the room. We were both quiet for a long time, but then Greg tried to get me to laugh, I almost did. Image. Greg and Rowley. In bed. Greg. Beep. Rowley. I was kind of glad we had to be quiet because I was getting pretty sleepy anyway, and I wanted to go to bed. I told Greg I needed to brush my teeth, and he said, too bad because the force field was still on, and I was trapped in my half of the room for the whole night. Image. Rowley and Greg in Greg's room. So I asked if he could turn off the force field for a little while so I could brush my teeth. But he said once the force field is turned on, it stays on until the morning. And then Greg went to the bathroom to brush his teeth and came back to the room after he was done. Image. Rowley and Greg. End image. Greg. Inty. That's when I remembered I needed to use the bathroom before I go to bed every night so I don't have an accident. But Greg said I was just gonna have to hold it until the morning. I said I couldn't make it all the way to morning, and Greg said that wasn't his problem. I said if Greg didn't shut off the force field, I was gonna have to pee into the something. I was gonna have to pee into the Chewbacca mug on his table next to the bed. Then he told me he had a special invisible knife that would cut through the force field. Greg showed me how the knife worked by cutting a square in the force field right next to the table where the stuff was. Image, Rowley and Greg in Greg's room. End image. Greg. Slice! Then he reached through the hole in the force field and grabbed the mug. Image, Rowley and Greg in Greg's room. I think they could really do without those. They're kind of annoying. Anyway, I asked Greg to cut a Rowley-sized hole in the force field so I could get through to use the bathroom. Greg said. The knife ran out of invisible batteries, and then it got used up and made the hole so I was... And it couldn't make the hole. It got used up when he made the hole to get the mug, and I was out of luck. Then Greg started talking about all sorts of things that made me feel like I really needed to use the bathroom. Image, Greg, asleep. Finally, Greg got tired and he fell asleep. I thought about trying to sneak past him, but I was worried he was just faking it, and I was gonna get zapped. After a while, I fell asleep too, but I woke up around 6 in the morning feeling like I was gonna burst. I didn't care about the force field anymore, but I was worried that I was... I was worried, though, that if I used the bathroom, I might wake up Mr. Heffley, but I should have just used the bathroom anyway, because Mr. Heffley was already up for the day. Image, Rowley, peeing through the window. Luckily, Mr. Heffley didn't look up in time to see me. At the window at something. Greg's room was already... What? Luckily, Mr. Heffley didn't look up in time to see me at the window, and when he 90 to something, don't ask, typo I guess, Greg's room, I was already back in bed. Image, Greg's dad in Greg's room. End image. I fell back asleep after a while and got up when Mrs. Heffley said it was time for breakfast. After we ate, I went to get my knight action figure from Greg's room, but I couldn't find the toy anywhere. Greg said he didn't know what happened to it, but Mrs. Heffley said he had to help me look for it anyway. So the two of us searched Greg's room, but to be honest, he wasn't overly helpful. Image, Greg and Rowley looking for the action figure in Greg's room. End photo. I guess Mrs. Heffley thought Greg was hiding the action figure from me because she said if he didn't hand it over in 2 minutes, then he was going to be in big trouble. Greg said he needed to use the bathroom, but he'd keep looking for the action figure after he was done. But I noticed he had something in his hand when he went in there. Greg locked the bathroom door, and Mrs. Heffley told him to come out right this instant. But then the toilet flushed, and when Greg opened the door, there wasn't anything in his hand anymore. Image, Mrs. Heffley, Rowley, and Greg. Mrs. Heffley made Greg give me 3 toys, and this time I picked out the ones that weren't broken. My mom and dad came and got me just before lunch, and boy, was I glad to see them. And P.S. If you want to know the answer to that knock-knock joke, it's elephants watch Elevision. The Adventures of Greg and Rowley. I'm pretty much up to date on Greg's life, so today I showed Greg what I had written so far. I thought he'd like it, but he was kinda mad. Image. Rowley showing Greg what he's written so far. End image. Greg said this book was supposed to be about him and not about me. I told him it was hard to write about just him because most of all the time we do stuff together anyway. He said I needed to go back through the book and take out all the stuff with me in it. I told him that'd be dumb because then the book would only be like 1 page long. I said maybe we should change the title to The Adventures of Greg and Rowley, and it would be our biography. Then he said since there's a lot more scary stuff in this book, we could make it into a spooky series where the two pals solve mysteries. We could make a lot of money and we'd both be rich and famous. Image. Greg and Rowley. End image. Greg said that was the stupidest idea he'd ever heard. He said this book is about his life, and if he wants, he can change the name of Greg's best friend to Rupert, and then he wouldn't owe me anything. Plus, he said he'd make Rupert really dumb and drooling all the time. Image. Greg and Rowley talking about the book. End image. Then, Greg told me the book smelled funny anyway, and when I brought it up to my nose to sniff it, he closed the book on my face. Crunch. Image. Greg closing the book on Rowley's face. End image. So, I said, hey, what was that for? And Greg said, that's what I get for dropping him in the puddle. Then he said he got me back when I least expected it, and I guess he was right about that. But I was pretty mad, and I whopped him with his own biography. Smash! Image. Rowley whomping Greg with a biography. End image. Well, I guess Greg wasn't expecting that because he lost his balance and fell in a big puddle. Sploosh. Anyway, I am up in my room now, and I am hoping Greg's mom calls him to go home for bedtime soon because he already skipped dinner. Image. Rowley in his room. I'm glad all that stuff happened today because it gave me a whole new chapter in our biography. I'm sure we'll be pals again tomorrow, and we'll have a bunch of new adventures that I can put in here after that. And I'll bet if we 90 with my idea about this scary stuff, it'll sell 1 million copies. Image. A book. End image. But if Greg changes my name to Rupert, I just want to say, for the record, that But if Greg, I don't know, what do they do to these things? I guess what do you want for a free book? Hold on. Deciphering time. But I guess if Greg does change my name to Rupert, I will want to say, for the record, that I wet his pants at the first sleepover, too. Meh. Okay, now back to this being about me. Well, if Greg's not happy with his biography, then I can go back to using this journal to write about myself. So now I'm officially the main character of this book again. And from now on, this thing is just going to be about me and my mom and my dad. And I might mention Miss Beck one more time, if there's enough room. Speaking of my mom and my dad, after my last night with Greg, they came to my room to talk about it. Image, Rowley's dad and Rowley's mom. And Rowley. Rowley's dad. Rowley, maybe it's time to find some new friends. But I don't really think I can add any new friends because Greg takes up so much of my time. I know me and Greg don't always get along. Like Mrs. Heffley said, sometimes friends do get on each other's nerves. Well, me and Greg get on each other's nerves a lot. So I guess that just proves that we're image, Greg and Rowley, and image, Rowley. Rowley, I told you it was gonna be bad. And that is the end. We've made it through another book. And it's probably just about time for class. So hopefully you enjoyed that rousing rendition, or whatever you want to call it, of Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Rowley Jefferson's Journal, even though it was mostly about Greg. But hey, as Rowley says, they're pretty well always together anyway. Until next time, which probably won't be too long from now, we'll see you then. And I think, if memory serves, we got one more Here's Hank-style book in the mail the other day, so we could go back to that, or we could do more diary. We'll see what I grab off the top of the pile. I forget what we've got here. Most of it's Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and I think there's one more Here's Hank, and there might be something else. I can't remember. Every couple of weeks, a new one magically appears at my front door, and I just throw it on top of the pile, and that's what we read. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it, and if you didn't, well, that's unfortunate. Anyway, have a good day, and we'll see you next time. If I can shut this off.